Welcome back to Grassroots, the show that highlights youth and amateur sports, past, present, and future. I'm your host, Evarist Joby, bringing you another special edition of our show. As always, we got our co-host, Coach Christian Begg.
What's up, baby?
What up? Ooh, you got the full court press on today, huh?
Yeah, a little local store here.
Okay, I like that. All right. Yeah, good to see you. Hey, man, you know, I'm feeling blue today. You know what I'm saying? We got our Apollo blue today.
I got you.
Fans of Apollo Media Network, we're bringing y'all a special edition of Grassroots. Please go follow Apollo Media everywhere on social media at Apollo HOU to get all your latest Grassroots and Apollo Media Network content. Today, our guest is 14-year NBA veteran. He has more accolades than the word accolade itself in the dictionary. He's been a 3-time NBA head coach. He was the first overall pick of your Houston Rockets back in the day. We have the legend sitting right here in our Grassroots studio today, Mr. John Lucas. Coach John Lucas.
How you all? Good.
How you doing today, sir?
Good. I love you all's energy. Yeah.
Hey,
Hold on, man. Let's not downgrade.
we're going to get to the swing. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Hold on, King Christian. We're going to get to that. But, hey, Christian, you know, we have an awesome guest today, a legend in the building. You know, the reason why we created this show was for gentlemen like John Lucas.
Hold on, man. Let me back it up. When we started this show and we did a list of people.
Yes.
Our number one draft pick.
Yes.
Not only was he the number one draft pick in the NBA, not only was he the number one tennis player coming out of college,
Yes.
but he was Grassroots
Number one draft
to be
pick.
on this
Yes.
show right here.
And we're not saying this because you sit here, Coach. We sat down, we created this show, so we can't tell the Grassroots story in Houston without John Lucas.
Well, you know, the Grassroots in Houston goes really, really deep. And Christian's been a big part of it. You're a part of it. And hopefully we can continue to grow basketball. I hope before I die that some kid comes out of Houston and becomes the face of the NBA. That's one of my goals. That when I first came to Houston, basketball was all a blue. And when we came, it was the first year of the summit. And Moses and I, who played together in college, not many people know Moses went to Maryland for one day.
Wow.
And then the guy who eventually became the Rockets coach scouted me all year for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Right.
Became the head coach of the Houston Rockets and traded to get the number one pick to make me the first guard ever chosen one. But he also told me on draft day we were going to get Moses.
Yeah.
And so Moses and I finally did get to play together.
And I heard
he was such a big recruit.
And I heard about some of your stories. You were in Corpus Christi or somewhere like that. Something about your pre-draft workout or something like that back in the day.
Well, that was for tennis.
Yeah, yeah.
I became All-American at the H.E. Butts Center.
Yeah, H.E.
The
Butts.
same year I was the first pick in the draft, almost identical to the same day.
Hey, but y'all don't know what H.E.B. stands for. That's H.E. Butts right there, H.E.B. But Christian, go into the reason why we created the story, definition of Grassroots and all that.
We talk about Grassroots. I came up with a definition and just the beginning, genesis of that's what Grassroots is, just the beginning of sports. We'd like to know what your definition or how you define Grassroots.
It's the gateway to future. It is the education of basketball, which is now in jeopardy because it used to be a time when people did grassroots to move kids on. So your elementary coach would move you on to your junior high school coach. Your junior high school coach would pass you on to your high school. And at that time, your high school, you only could have kids that were in your school area. You couldn't go out of district to play. Prep schools were not very big at that time. And then the high school coaches moved you on to college coaches, and you were recruited. But nobody tried to follow kids all the way through because Grassroots has really grown, and people not only now realize through Nike, Adidas, the shoe companies, that now there's a future in Grassroots by getting kids and working with them at a young age and trying to develop them on. The problem with it is it's so hard for parents and kids to move kids on without having them, because when I finally get a good team, I don't want to end up with somebody that I got to always start. Grassroots means always starting over. And so what happens is nobody likes to start over, because I go from 1 year being very good to now I got to rebuild again and start over. So what do? I try to steal players from other teams. I try to convince people that that situation isn't as good as this one. And it becomes competitive, because now people are paying shoe teams and organizations to try to have them get the best players to play.
Well, so Coach, you have an amazing grassroots story. We're going to come to a lot of that when we talk about Nike and AAU, because we know your involvement with the shoe brands and how it's changed over the years. But Coach, as you mentioned, he stole the thunder. He's a two-time All-American in basketball, but also tennis. You growing up in rural Durham, North Carolina, the Lucas family legacy name. If people doesn't know, your father has a school named after him. You have some awesome children that are doing great things all around the globe in sports and entertainment. But Coach, talk about your upbringing in North Carolina to make you the man you are today.
Well, so, my involvement with Grassroots is because my Grassroots coach, and we didn't have Grassroots like that as it is today. You played the boys club. So my Grassroots days came because when I got out of school in the 3rd or 4th grade, the high school was right up the street. So my father was the principal. So I couldn't go home. So I would come up to the school and go to the gym. So the varsity coach, while I was sitting in the gym, taught me a set shot. And then he happened to be the tennis coach in the spring. And he taught me tennis. And he gave me a future. And so that's why I said Grassroots is like, he didn't go with me to college. He passed me on. He helped me get started. And he continued to coach in high school further on. But I was with him all the way through. So then I was in the junior high school system, because most times, whatever junior high school, you went right to the high school. And I played with them. And then I went to Maryland, the University of Maryland. But he gave me my chance in Grassroots. So that's why Grassroots is so important to me, and why I am a gateway keeper of trying to make Grassroots be the same about mentorship, counseling, coaching kids, and positive confrontation about them getting better. And that's what I think a lot of AAU coaches that are in Grassroots, sometimes Grassroots gets a bad name. It shouldn't, because we have a lot of people who are community-based involved that are giving back to kids who don't want anything from them other than them to be successful. And my biggest thing is that for them to get an education is still the key. And so for them to be able to use that to go to college and go. So now, with Grassroots, Christian and Earth, they're saying we're behind the European players because college is in the way. So what about, it's only 350 kids that make it to the NBA. What about the other million of kids, are the other scholarships that are awarded that they could be in physical trainer, they could be coaches, they could be in the analytics. Now, there are other opportunities that are available. And that's what I think makes Grassroots the most critical gateway. It is the beginning. He called it the Genesis. It is the beginning to the future of our young kids. And they get to learn teamwork, fellowship, playing with different people from different communities, traveling together on the road, sleeping 2 or 3 to a bed, learning how to become solid citizens and contributors.
Right. Well, Christian, you have been in the grassroots game for almost 20 years. You've been working with Coach Lucas for a long, long time on things. And again, this is an honor for him to be in our studio. What are some of the things, your first memory when you met Coach Lucas back in the day?
Well, it's a little different than what it is now. When I met Lucas through a gentleman, Marlon Lowe, who's been one of your mentees, there weren't many. If you're a high school kid in that gym, you had to be really, really special. And he did it. He brought high school guys in. But, man, I remember being in there with J.R. Smith, just different guys. I remember being in there having a few high school kids and having to leave, and the high school kids leave because my guy from the Boston Celtics, McHale or whoever it was coming in to scout big baby Glenn Davis. You know,
Got a good memory.
yeah. I mean, there's so many things.
Well, you know, Christian, his son, Christian's a big grassroots name. Sometimes those kids get passed over because he's trying to help the community. So before I got a team, most all the kids used to train. So, and I did it at Fondy because that's where our basketball grassroots and the city gave me the gym to use to help develop the grassroots. So anytime, so that was Penny Hardaway, J.R. Smith, Chris Mars. But back then, people came and stayed in Houston. They made it their home. We used to have the Fondy Summer League. Then we had the young kids play. And before there were so many teams, it was just Christian's team, the Houston Hoops, the Adidas team, the Superstars, and then another group called Houston Select and Gold Team. And those were the three teams. And I didn't have a team. So all those kids used to train. So I think in order to be good, you have to play against the better players. So we used to get them all, and then they would break out and go play on the weekend. But at that time, before Christian, before any of the Hal Pastors who are here, there was a guy named, I can't even think of his name right now.
Just left my name. Parker?
Yeah, Parker, who really actually started it, was called the BCI. And he got into some trouble because I had treatment centers. I had to put him in treatment. And I became the commissioner of the BCI. And when that happened, I learned more about grassroots. But I was there because I had finally gotten sober because my career was interrupted with drugs and alcohol. I had gotten sober, so my thing was to educate the kids.
And it's not to cut you off. For those that don't know, BCI was what we had in Texas before AAU, because Texas was one of the last states to actually, kids could leave the state to go play in tournaments. So we had BCI.
Yeah, and so with that, they got scholarships. So my biggest thing, I wasn't caring about where kids went to school. I wanted to educate them about the drugs and alcohol. So there were a lot of people back then who were Yolanda, Lazine, a lot of people who were involved with grassroots, Elaine Jones, a lot of people that were trying, but it was really small, as Christian said. And then it grew. Then it became where we had Nike started, and Nike had a team. And the grassroots for Nike came about through a guy named Howard White who played with me in college. And so...
Can you tell us who Howard White is?
Howard White is one of the... I'm Nike's second basketball client. So I was getting my Nike shoes.
Oh, you had that early Nike deal.
I was getting those shoes out the truck of Phil Knight's car.
Wow.
And a guy named Mike Phillips used to have the shoes in his car. So my contract was $20,000 contract, 100,000 shares of Nike. It was in 1988. My dumb ass took the $20,000. My stock today would be somewhere around $8 million.
Oh, wow.
And so just from that contract alone, but I didn't do it. Spencer Haywood was the first guy, and then Nike grew.
Right.
And then because I played tennis, my agent, which happened to be in college at that time, was a guy named David Falk.
Wow.
And so David Falk, they did my contract, and I was like their big recruiter. So David ended up getting Michael. Howard, who played with me in college, ended up being Michael's main guy. Then Howard started the Grassroots, which Sonny Vaccaro eventually came, and other people who were really a grassroots legend before you used to have the Diaper Dan Classic and some other events. So then so after Michael came, it was like, how do we find the next Michael Jordan? So came the Nike AAU programs, where they established about 30 teams, spent about $2 to $3 million looking for the next guy who could sell 200, 300 million pairs of shoes. And so this is how Grassroots has continued as we continue to look. But it's only gotten bigger. As Michael got bigger, he had his own brand, became Jordan brand. And so now you had two Nike and you had Converse, Adidas. All of those guys started shoe teams to look for that same guy. And eventually those guys are born. And you can't figure it out in Grassroots. You don't know who has the mindset, who's going to be. We miss more than we succeed. But then eventually we find. So now today what you see is a product of a lot of trial and error. And so I was fortunate enough to be with Michael. And then we didn't have Kobe when I was in Philly. Kobe first went with Adidas. And then after we got Kobe back, then the next guy was LeBron. And so we've had the three best shoe guys that got from Define and Nike Grassroots, which has really helped Nike to grow. And then they did the same thing with tennis. Tennis has the same foundation as basketball. And so golf doesn't, because, the golf guys are found eventually. We got Tiger.
Right.
So eventually we began. And then the biggest hit for Nike was Bo Jackson in baseball. So you got Bo, Michael, Tiger, all at once. That really was propel Nike.
So, Coach, you mentioned Bo Jackson, dual sport athlete in college. You're a dual sport athlete in college. Everybody knows the Dave John Lucas synonymous of basketball. But what you mentioned and what we talked about, you were an All-American in tennis. I would love to ask you a question about, you see a lot of African-American women that are involved in tennis. You don't really see as many African-American men involved in tennis. Talk about why you got into tennis and the trajectory of the game growing in African-American community more.
Well, I was originally supposed to be the next Arthur Ashe. But when I was coming up, early 60s, couldn't use any of the facilities, couldn't play in any other places. And tennis was tough. You had to go win. And one of the things in tennis is you only get paid if you win matches. In basketball, I was the first pick. It was guaranteed money. So I had to take the guarantee over to tennis. And I only played tennis 3 months out the year. The other time was my basketball focus. But nobody was interested in tennis. And then it was really tough to follow Arthur because in my neighborhood, we didn't play tennis. That was where the band practiced, on the tennis courts. So, eventually it got to be it. But I did, as I told you, my high school coach taught me that trade. All my kids know how to play tennis. All of them play basketball. That's why basketball is our family business, because it is a trade that you can pass on if it's taught. You can become a teacher. You can become another big part of it. And then the last thing I missed talking to you all about, student athlete. When we went to school, college scholarships were set up for athletes, but it really wasn't. It was set up for 5 athletes and 7 other kids who weren't going to be able to pay back student loans. So those 5 kids that were on the benches got to be, so they would be debt-free coming out, but they had to be good enough players. But the 5 that were playing probably were going to move on and try to play professional basketball. So the student athlete part was they were in school to not have to pay debt back when they got their scholarship. It's changed drastically because people have found ways through internet and stuff to shortcut the process. Everybody wants to speed the process. So give you an example. NBA is good college basketball today. And people get mad at me. What do you mean? Okay, let's just say, take 10 teams away from the NBA. That's 150 players out the league. Take them and put that 150 on those other existing teams. All right? So some of the stars that are on those 10 teams, they're going to be on these teams already. Now take back the middle-aged veteran, that's what I call them, the Marcus Cousins, the John Wall, those guys who are out the league back. Bring those guys back from Europe and throw them into that pool of those players now. then a 19-year-old wouldn't be able to play.
Right.
So what they did was the draft, which was initially set up. And by the way, Christian, I don't think I ever told Christian, we talk all the time. My draft here,
Was the
they did
first.
it on the phone.
Wow.
They did it on the phone.
How many rounds was it then?
10
know,
rounds.
and-
And I remember when they said I was the first pick, Red Auerbach said, what in the world is this league coming to? A guard going number one.
But was it? So, correct me if I'm wrong. I tried to do my research. You got drafted by ABA team, and then
I didn't come out the year the ABA team
Oh,
drafted.
okay.
The new. I wanted to come out
okay.
because lefty we had at Maryland we had what we called the three guard offense, and so lefty had moved me to like shooting guard or small forward because we had a kid that played with Dallas Mavericks for a long time, Brad Davis, and another kid that played with me, Mo Howard, who played in the league. So they eventually, to get us all on the court, we moved positions. And so I was determined I was going to leave. Me and Mo went from being the best backcourt in the country 1 year. Now we got to be a three guard offense. So the New Jersey Nets drafted me first. My daddy finally, because both of my parents are educators. So their daddy said, you can go and go. I got ready that night, about midnight, my mother called me and she said, you promised me a degree. You stay in school. I stayed in school. The ABA merged the next year. And then I became the first pick. I was originally going to go with the Spurs because they were trying to sign me before the merger because they knew the merger was coming and then they were going to battle in court. It's been real fun. And one of my best friends is George Gervin. And so I would have played with George Gervin, but I would have probably had to come off the bench because they had a guy named James Silas who was really good.
So, Coach, you got drafted, but you were able to go back to school.
I got drafted. I didn't have to come out. It was the ABA draft.
Okay, ABA draft. Because today,
you had to put your name in the draft, but they could draft whoever they wanted.
Okay.
Then it was your decision.
So the times have changed so much from when you.
The basketball has changed. The time has changed, and one of the reasons we take young players so much now is because the ownership. Most of the teams in the league were moms and pops ownerships, but now, with hedge funds and people who are owning the teams now, they found a way of looking at the draft. The draft is set up not to pay you. People think the draft is set up. Man, I get to that second guy. We draft you, and one of the reasons players don't get to coach a lot are in front office because there's an allegiance to players. Like as much as AAU and you grow up in there's a strong family connection and an environment. You get an automatic relationship. So now when you get to a team, I'm pulling you out of school. You're a number to me. I tell kids you're just a number. But for me, I'm in Grassroots, so I know your family, I know your situation. So you tell them, say, look, stay in school. Oh man, you just hating. No, because you look like there's money for 3 years. But if you don't make it, guess what I'm gonna do next year? I'm drafting somebody else. So when your time comes up, it's gonna be over. So guys say, man, I'm gonna be making $8 million. That's relative. 8 million versus 350 million. You can't wait 6 months. And the most kids know. So now what's happened is everybody's trying to circumvent age, like overtime sports, all of these the prep stuff, Nike. Everybody's trying to speed up the process of a body, and you can't. And like your son Justin is the size he is now won't be the size he'll be in 2 years. But we're all trying to put those 2 years on him, and he's 17. You have to let your body mature, your mind mature, and it's the difference. I've lost so many kids who tried to come out of school, and the success rate hasn't been as good as it should, and you never hear from them because they came out and got quick money and didn't look at long-term money. The one person that did listen to me was Trey Young. I told his dad, Rayford, the deal is to get 3 contracts. Try to get 3 max contracts out of this league. He's going to do it.
One thing you said about being in the gym and what you try to do for people is not just to make the next guy that could be the face of basketball from Houston. I hear you say you can be a coach. You're training these kids, but you're telling them you can be a coach, you can be a trainer. Those guys are making money. And this basketball can change your life.
Well, you know, so many people in basketball, you don't have to have a degree to teach basketball. There are not a lot of people who could play basketball that can't teach basketball. And what my biggest thing is I want to teach you the game so you can take the game and go play. If you know how to play, you really don't need a coach. Your coach is there for timeout, guidance, directions, and confrontation, and end the game plays. Significant difference, and film work. But you know how to play, you know how to play. If you know the spacing on the court, you can play. But if you go play and you never learn how to play, you can't pass something on you never learned. So I try to make sure that they all know. Barbara Turner used to be in my gym. She was in my gym when she was really young in Cleveland. She's coaching in the WNBA. Mo Cheats coaching in the NBA. A lot of people are pulled into coaching at that time at a young age. Jay, my youngest son. John, my other son, they're all coaching. Jay is at Duke associate head coach. John's in player development with the Phoenix Suns. So I think it's very important that we're not just coming in for you to run and jump. I want you to learn this trade. I said, it's like if you're not going to work with your daddy and learn this trade, then if you're coming in here and they're sacrificing for you to be here, we got to get something out of this. But what you can really catch is an education. But what other people want is a quick fix. And because I always go back to March 14th, 1986, when the Rockets kicked me out. I came back and I finally got sober, Christian. It took me 6 years after being on drugs to get sober. I admitted to having a problem in 1980. It took me 6 years to get sober. Once I finally got sober and I was really on my way, I developed these fitness programs. So I went to these hospitals to put my fitness program in. And in Houston, nobody wanted to put my program in because I was a notorious slipper. I kept relapsing and relapsing, but I finally got sober. And on this time, the ladies who took my program said, "Do you have a degree?" I said, "Yes." In fact, I got a master's degree in secondary. She said, "Well, we can take your program." And that gave me my new start.
So Christian mentioned that he met you back in the day in the gym. Before we get into just your first couple of years with the Rockets, I met you so many years ago.
You didn't bring that picture?
1993, I met you.
Really? I was going to the Spurs.
In the Alamo Dome. Yeah. It was the very, very first game of the Alamo Dome existence. You opened the Alamo Dome. I met you back in the day. That's when the Coyote was around and Avery Johnson was there. Dave Robinson was there. The Spurs.
My biggest regret was not re-signing Avery Johnson. And he and I played together in Seattle with Ricky Winslow. And we went to the conference finals with Avery. When I took over the Spurs, Avery was on the bench. He started for me. And I had a kid named Lloyd Daniels. And David Robinson, Antoine Carr, Sean Elliott, Terry Cummings. Terry and I played together. And then we traded that year. We traded Sean because he was sick, Sean Elliott. With the kidney. And we got Dennis Rodman.
So I met you. I was a little kid. My mom lives in San Antonio, Judson Converse area. I met you. You opened up the Alamo Dome. You had the little, you had the throwback, the little mini throwback thing.
With the sunroof.
And security wasn't like this now. Y'all walk off the court and, fans are sitting right there. You sign autographs. I remember meeting you. You shook my hand. And I was like, Coach, so excited to meet you, blah, 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 blah. And then we had this little pamphlet. It was a little gray pamphlet. It was like really kind of paper mache-ish. It was a program. And you signed the front of my program that I had back then. Put John Lucas, and you put a little scripture. I mean, not a little note. Dave Robinson always signed the scripture, but you put a little note.
One day at a time.
And one day at a time. And I have this in my office framed, and I have a picture that we took. I couldn't find it, because I've seen you probably about 4 or 5 times over the years with Christian. Every time Christian says, "You find a picture." It's somewhere in my photo, but once I find it, I'm going to.
Please, I like that. But I bet you it says one day at a time. And you know why I say that? Because I've been sober. I wrote a book about recovery at that time because I was the last coach in the hemisphere too.
Yep.
And you know who beat us? Charles Barkley hit the shot. They went to the finals. They beat us to go to the finals.
And both years you coached for the Spurs, if I remember correctly, because I was a big Spurs fan at that time. your teams got beat by the both Western Conference teams that represented in the finals.
Yeah, I left for bad reasons. I left. I've been coaching 2 years. I was the quickest coach to 100 wins at that time, and Greg Popovich was like the fourth assistant coach at Golden State. And I asked to interview for the general manager's job, and they let Bob Bass go, but they wouldn't let me interview. And so Pop came as my coach, and being young and coaching, I felt, how can the fourth assistant come and be ahead of me at that time? Well, Pop married a member that was a part of the Spurs front office. And so I had 4 or 5 other offers. But I left to become the general manager of the 76ers. Pat Riley had the only other titles. He was a vice president, general manager, and coach.
Okay.
I left to go, but now I forgot that you win games with talent. Now I'm leaving David Robinson, Sean Elliott, Dennis Rodman, Avery Johnson,
Vinny Del Negro on those teams.
Denny Del Negro. I'm leaving all those guys to go to Dana Barros, Clarence Weatherspoon, Sean Bradley, and some young draft choices. Now, they lost 60 games. I just won 60. So I figured I was the reason we were winning. And then that's when I found out it ain't about those X's and O's. It's about them Jimmy's Joes. It's about the talent that you get. We give a lot of coaches a lot of credit, but if we got good talent, it's good. And then when I left Pop, I hired Greg Hill. And he coached for a year, and then they got the first pick and bought Tim Duncan. And then that led them to their championship run.
So, Coach, we're based in Houston. You played for the Rockets for, I believe, 5 years out of your 14-year NBA career, 4 or 5, 6 years. Talk to the fans out there that maybe, a little bit, maybe not this generation that never even knew where the Summit was at, probably didn't even know anything about back in the day playing with these guys that are notable names now in Houston Rockets lore. You average over 7 assists a game for your career, which is I just want you to talk to the fans out there just about what it was like playing in Houston.
One of the biggest things that I love playing in Houston. When I came to Houston, it wasn't a basketball city. We got good our first year. They lost 60 games. The year I came, we went to the conference finals. Back then, we played in the Central Division. We lost to the 76ers, which was the year of the merger. The 76ers lost to the Portland Trail Blazers with Bill Walton that year. And that's why when I talk about the league, we had 12 teams. Load management was out of the question.
You played 82 games.
82 games. We would shower with your uniforms on.
Wow.
Because we would play back to back to back on commercial flights. So we get up at 6 in the morning, get on a plane, play that night, get on another plane, 6 the next morning, play that night, get on another plane, play 6 in the morning, play next night. So when you talk about not playing and not playing with injuries, we didn't have all the things that we have now. When I coached in '93, it's the first year they got charter planes. And those weren't real charters like they are now. They were just like private jets, but enough just to carry the team. So now it has grown to some unbelievable things. But you'd have 12 guys. You'd have 3 centers. You'd have four small forwards, 3 power forwards, and you have 2 point guards. I mean, you had real teams. And everybody had bigs, and everybody was really, really good. And you could hand check. And the way the league has changed today, it grew. One of the things that got me, though, was after I played against all my heroes, Pistol Pete, Earl Monroe, Walt Frazier, Freddie Brown. The league, I think one of the reasons I got on drugs was that, now what? I played at the Garden. I played at the Forum. I've seen this. Now what? And I stopped growing as a person. And that's why when I'm in the gym now, I don't want what happened to them. And I got involved in cocaine. And the only reason that, I'm going to tell you, people get mad at me because they didn't see my history. I was Michael Jordan in my time. Two-sport athlete. We don't have to meet it, but I was that guy. I could play with the Rockets 3 times. I kept coming back. They would suspend me because of my drug use. And when I admitted to having a drug problem, Christian, we didn't have no policies in place. I wrote
You wrote the policy.
I wrote the policies for what it was, but it took me 6 years to get stopped once I said. Now, after my 3rd year with the Rockets, we signed a guy named Rick Barry, and he was coming to play with me. At that time, the commissioner was a guy named Lawrence O'Brien. He named what the compensation would be for us signing Rick Barry. So they wanted either me or Moses. So obviously I packed my stuff because it was going to be me. And then I went out there to Golden State. And then that's when my drug use really took off. And then they eventually suspended me. Then I came back to go play in my hometown where I went to college at Maryland. And I still struggled with drugs. So I should have probably, and the reason I was the #1 pick wasn't because of talent. It's because of leadership. I mean, I could bring people together. It was a point guard. I could do things that would help. And now all of a sudden I became the guy that nobody wanted on the team. And so I had to get my life together. So that's why now I'm very confronted. And then I started my treatment centers. And then once I got sober, the league let me put their program together. And then the first year, which our league was very highly drug infested, I put 148 players in treatment.
Wow. Coach, I want to read a quote that you mentioned about, well, since you're on this topic. You said, "What I thought was the worst possible deal in my life turned out to be the best gift I've been given. My addiction carried me past my sports life. It gave me the best trophy. It gave me John Lucas. It gave me life." Since we're on this topic, those were your quotes about.
Right outside your building here, I was downtown Houston, Texas, in a blackout, 7 o'clock in the morning. No shoes on, 7 pairs of athletic socks, urination on my body, trying to figure out where my car was with a game that night. And I missed the game because we played the Portland Trailblazers, and that's when Bill Fitch saved my life. He didn't cover up for me. They didn't let it go any further. But it's right out here. When you sent me where I was going to be on Main Street, this is the same place. If you ever get a copy, my book is out of copy now because it's so. If you ever it talks about being on Main Street down here, and so that's why I'm so strong on kids who get involved with drugs. And Christian will tell you, I'm pretty hard about life lessons in the gym. Basketball for me is the trick to getting them in the gym. You try to help mentor them. So for me, when I got sober, it was, everybody says you had to have a born again moment. That was my born again moment because I didn't know what I was going to do when I retired. I didn't know what to do. So I had to go back on a journey, Evarist and Chris, to find me. We all have problems. Mine just were public. And so that's why I say it's the best gift I ever got. And they're like, right now, my dad died, and he integrated North Carolina school system. I got all of these trophies and things in my, and it's unimportant. Like I don't go to Jay's games at Duke because it's my home. It's his time. I try to stay out the way. It's his time. I don't want to take no shine from him. Because when I did go, when he played at Texas, I was so mad they didn't play him right. They would catch me on TV being all frowned up and everything because I got it. And then John, I did. And then I got 2 kids, since you talk about that trophy. John is a confrontive, like he was raised in my addiction. Jay was raised in my recovery. Christian knows both of them. They got 2 different demeanors. John is like and Jay is just, I call him Grand Hill. He's just so laid back. He's like the quarterback at the Broncos.
So, Coach, we're going to ask you a really awesome question. We ask every guest that comes on to give us their starting 5 all-time grassroots athletes they've seen with their own eyes. So here's the floor, coach, to give us your starting 5 athletes you've seen when you were an amateur, when you were a pro, when you were a coach. You have to give us your all-time starting 5
Any
athletes.
sport, any sport.
In any sport.
Any
It could be
sport. It could be anything you want,
yes,
but
all
5
time.
all-time.
But you had to see them.
But you had to see them with your own
while they
eyes,
were in
not on social
grassroots.
media, not on Instagram, not on newspaper. You had to see them in person.
Well, I really wasn't a big grassroots guy until I got into coaching or before. I didn't go to a lot of that. But I will tell you, I had Kobe when he was in the 10th grade, and I judged everybody because we didn't have the rules we had. I drafted Jerry Stackhouse, who played Kobe one-on-one, and Kobe beat him. And I took him as the 3rd pick as the coach of the Sixers. So Kobe would be 1.
All right.
LeBron James, I went to go see because everybody kept telling me I was in Cleveland that he's better than Kobe. I said, look, nobody I've seen is fundamentally better than Kobe Bryant. I went to go see LeBron. He was a physical specimen at that age, and he was a terrific passer. And I got suspended because I brought him into the gym like I did with Kobe. And with my team with this Cleveland Cavaliers, he was the best player then. So from a grassroots standpoint, those 2 guys.
2 of the best.
Two of the best.
All right, you got 3
All right.
more.
3 more, 2 more.
3 more.
Three
You
more.
got Kobe and LeBron.
Bjorn Borg in tennis.
Okay.
One of the best people I've ever seen play tennis. Another guy that was just an amazing athlete in tennis was a guy named Ilie Nastase. Unbelievably gifted. And the other,
Got 1 more.
in any sport,
Any sport that you saw that was an amateur.
would be Moses Malone.
Wow.
He averaged 33 points, 17 rebounds, and 13 blocks.
13.
And they never ran a play for him
Wow.
in high school. Petersburg guy.
Wow. All right, that's your starting 5, coach. What you got, Christian?
All right, I want to kind of flip this. Going in, we talk about grassroots. You met me as a young pup, then you got to see my son, as many other people you've worked with. Tell us about the journey, starting with John, who's now with, he played about 10 years in the NBA. Tell us about that journey in grassroots for him and how he got to where he was and his accolades.
And also, coach, to piggyback on that, talk about you being a father too as well,
Yeah,
having
that's
a
what I
coach
mean.
and give advice to parents on that.
I was
piece.
2 fathers.
Right, 2 fathers.
John was in my recovery, in my addiction. When I got sober, he was in his senior year. He played for John Urey. And he played for Urey, and it was actually because of TJ. And he played, and John had no scholarships. And the coach at Baylor took John. And then I went on to coach the Sixers. I think, no, Cavaliers. And he played for a guy named Dave Blitz, and he hated John. Hated Little John. Little John is one of those players that always asks the question, why? Why are we doing this? You know, coaches hate that, man. Why? Why? You know, he ain't been a jerk, but he ain't like, why? And Little John didn't need anything from the coach. You know, certain coaches coach guys, and especially kids that need plane ticket home, they need something. John was a little rich black kid. And John didn't need anything from Coach Blitz. But he didn't like. So the weekend, you remember the guy died at Baylor?
Yeah.
Lawrence Roberts, who played here at Bel Air and then went to Lamar and went to Baylor. He, Lawrence, and the kid, the guy, Devin Roberts, all were at my house that weekend training with the Sixers. When I got suspended, they were all there.
Wow.
And so they go back the next week. He's found dead. And that year, John wasn't going to play for Coach Blitz. He didn't like John. He was trying to, in fact, he played a walk-on before. And John was averaged 14 points for him. So when Dave Blitz got released, Scott Drew came in. And Scott Drew was really a good person. And if the situation hadn't have been that, I think John might have left. Might have stayed there. But he left and went with Eddie Sutton. And through the grassroots in the gym, Jimmy Williams, who used to coach with Coach Sutton, was there in the gym with Marlon and Christian. I think Christian might have been. No, he weren't there at that time. But Kyle Manur and those guys. So John ends up going to Oklahoma State. And Coach Sutton was like me. He's a hard-nosed coach. And John played in that conference and was the player of the year and went to the Final Four.
And he was a college what?
All-American.
College All-American.
And he thought he was going to be drafted. I said, John, you're not going to be drafted. You're a 5'10" guard. We can find that anywhere. I said, this is my profession. Why would I take a 5'10" guard when I can find you on the street? I'm looking for some side. So I said, look, in your honor, I'm going to go to the casino. Because you're not going to be drafted. I'm not going to watch the draft and go through this with you. So he and Mama watched it. And he didn't get drafted. I said, but now we can find the best fit for you. And he didn't make it the first time. He went to Europe. Didn't like it, came back, went back to Europe. Then he went to China. And then relationships and grassroots. I hired Tom Thibodeau as a Spurs coach. He used to train Lil John. He knew exactly what John, and brought John in with Derrick Rose. And then John got a chance to play in Chicago, had some really big nights. And he went on to play. But John's work ethic, 1,000 shots in the morning, made before school. We do that still today with kids at 6 a.m. Makes.
Not shots.
Makes. We don't do that as much to that level because we don't have that kind of time. But he'd be up at 5 to make, and I had a gun, and he got this. So I said, if you're going to be small, you got to make shots. You got to be able to shoot the ball. Because I've never seen a coach tell a guy who makes shots, stop shooting. So I said, you're 6'7" if you can make shots. So he worked on his shooting, and I said, you have to be the toughest guy on the floor.
Coach, I don't want to stay too long on that.
Let me finish. This is important.
Go ahead.
Because then LeBron James jumped over John in a game.
Remember that?
On national TV, and John was crushed. I said, John, just wait your time. The next time he played LeBron, he had 36 points against LeBron. So John had a bravado attitude. Jay, my other son, mama's boy.
Coach, we're going to get to Jay.
You're going to stay with John, huh?
John for a second.
Okay.
Number one, he didn't play the summer circuit. He did that one tournament with John Urie, a stacked team for the most part, but he played the tennis circuit.
He's playing tennis.
So
couldn't do that today though, Chris.
What was did y'all have a regiment for his
training?
Why
he quit tennis?
Why?
A guy named Andy Roddick beat him.
Okay.
Wow.
At Kalamazoo, Michigan. And where I played 33 years ago, and he came, I think it was somebody beat him, and he came off the court and he said, I quit. I don't want to play no more.
Move to Eddie Roddick.
He threw his racket, put me, he said, I'm playing basketball. That's what I want to do.
Coach, I want to point out a couple of things. He played high school, first of all, in a really good, one of the better classes in Houston that produced 2 other McDonald's All-Americans and Daniel Ewan, TJ Ford, other NBA players like Alton Ford, Ronnie Price. John actually led the city in scoring, if I'm correct.
Led the state in scoring.
State in scoring. He said no scholarship offers until late.
Well, he played with Emeka.
And played with Emeka Okafor.
But John was a little guard. Still was small. He had offers, but because he hadn't been on the grassroots circuit. And I used to tell him, and I didn't know about it like I know now, because I had him playing tennis at the time, because it was going to be tennis, because I felt like, as a father, you're not going to be big enough. And so I kept him on the team. And he just said, I'm going to play basketball.
Wow.
So what was the difference now with Jay? Because this was when I got close with you.
Jay followed his brother's footsteps. But I knew Jay was going to make it. When Jay got in the 9th grade, fall ball. And Jay had a fall game at Bel Air. And Jay dressed up like in a shirt and tie, like it was a real basketball game.
On his own.
On the fall ball. I said, he respects the game of basketball. Because he's going to like, this is a job for me and I'm going to get to play. And this is fall ball with a running clock.
So I want to...
That's a heck of a statement for like that's what I knew I was gonna get up with him. I could never get his shot fixed the way he wanted to. But Jay was a smart player who played for Christian and them, played with Dick Wise, Mike Singletary, and Jay. That 2007 class.
Wait, Coach, I want to do this. I want to give Jay his flowers.
He loves
because
Jay.
if we walked in here right now and you see Jay, you go to Duke, and he's had some great jobs. You're not look at this basketball player here.
Yeah.
But this guy was efficient. He got it done, and he played in what I thought was one of the most difficult, most competitive classes I've seen in high school basketball. He was a McDonald's All-American in a class that had former Houston Rocket James Harden, Kevin Love.
Yeah, that's right.
What people, to me, the closest entourage to, or the closest, just thing around them to LeBron, OJ Mayo, MVP of the NBA, Derrick Rose, former Houston Rocket, Eric Gordon, and the list goes
Kevin Love.
on.
Kevin Love.
So many.
Blake Griffin.
Houston's own DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin, and there's still many more. And he was an All-American in that class.
You know what's funny about that? 22 of his 24 players in that McDonald's game played in the NBA.
Wow.
Jay wasn't one of them. Taylor King was the other one that didn't play.
Wow.
And he was the player of the year.
Yeah.
But 22 of the 24 kids in that class, that was a heck of a class. I don't know if it was the best overall class, but it's a very, very good class.
Coach,
That's right, but you know what? James was MVP. So was
James was an MVP,
and
right.
so was D Rose.
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Blake Griffin was dunk champion.
Dunk champion, yes. These are Hall of Famers now.
Oh, what else was
We don't
there?
even remember. Remember the guy, James White? He went to, I think, not
Yeah.
James White, but something White. He was from Arkansas.
Johnny
Spurs.
Flynn.
Yeah, Johnny Flynn.
Wow.
Patrick Patterson.
Patrick Patterson.
Was in that
Johnny
class.
Flynn might have been in the class before.
No, he
he
was
that
the
class?
Jay's, Jay's class. Because when nobody saw him because he was at Syracuse,
Yeah.
remember?
On that final part of that question where you were a NBA dad and you see a lot of these parents out here that are coaching their kids from the sidelines, how did you keep your composure by not being the coach while you're watching your sons play? And what advice would you give the parents that are kind of coached from the sidelines? And
Well,
things of that nature?
the hardest thing is to see your last name not succeed. And I tell the kids all the time, you can either go out there and play hard or your dad's going to be rapping in the car. You ain't going to listen to your rap music. He's going to be telling you how you didn't do this, how you did that. So and I said, nothing is more important.
That's a good
Nothing is more important than your last name. I said, what's the first thing they say? What you get? It's your name. It's the most important thing you get. The first thing you get when you're born is what? Your name. What's the last thing they say when you die? Your name.
wow.
And so you got to protect your name. So I tell parents all the time, but parents have got to let them figure it out. So often they just want to be successful and help. Now we got so many fights and clips of parents fighting referees and doing things because what has happened is people are putting so much value on the competitiveness of getting these opportunities. NIL money, all of the way things are going now, it's so competitive. Before, it was fun. It was a chance to learn how to become a good citizen. Not now, this is about financial equity. And just think, guys, in 5 years, there's going to be somebody that's going to make $500 million in basketball.
It's a long way from being in.
Like that, my whole contract in 1976 was $1.5 million. The total contract for 5 years. That's not even the minimum today. In the lockout, I shouldn't probably tell this story if y'all gonna run there. A guy was gonna walk out in the lockout. I had to cuss them out in the bubble because they were going to leave. Because the commission put all this down about Black Lives Matter on the floor. And, we had a lot going on with Kenosha, and we had a lot going on in Portland. And I told them, if y'all plan on leaving, because they didn't want to be in the bubble no more. If y'all playing, you better be going to Kenosha or Portland. But if you want to just go home and you leaving because you filing protest, don't lie to yourselves. You go home because you want to go. Let everybody know you go home because you want to go home. Don't let them go. I said, because when I played in this league, the per diem was $24. The minimum salary was $35,000. That's what you want to go back to?
That can happen real quick.
And all of a sudden, we found a new future. That we stayed there and went on.
Well, Coach, you know, we can stay here all day, but you know, we always ask all of our guests want to highlight what you got going on. We have this segment called "The Grass is Greener." So, Coach, tell the people out there in Houston everything you got going on with JL Enterprise, JL3, what you got going on. Just tell the people out there, you know, just what John Lucas has going on today.
Just trying to be a positive influence in youth sports in the city of Houston and to make a difference because this city saved my life and I owe this city. So for the last 37 years since I've been sober, I plan on just giving back. I always tell people when I finish speaking in this city, I owe.
Talk about John Lucas Enterprises.
I just told you.
Where can we find that?
Tell the fans.
John Lucas Enterprises on Twitter. John Lucas Enterprises on the internet. But I'm not here to promote me. I'm here to promote Grassroots. I don't want you to promote.
But yeah, we're here to promote. We're here to big you up. Well, hold on. Let me say this. Being that someone that watched this, like I was a water boy for the Houston Hoops when Jay was there. And when you talk about a parent, Lucas always stayed out of the way. I remember one time saying when we played that Pumps team in Vegas, you're like, that was the first time I said, hey, man, let me step down because they had the former NCAA Jim, what was his name? UCLA coaching with James Harden them. But I just want to thank you for all you've done to the city, not just for the kids, for the young coaches, opening up opportunities. We've had other guests on here that have talked about how you help them to be in the profession. So we just want to thank you and thank John Lucas Enterprises.
And you know, it goes back to the quote he said. I got a great gift 37 years ago.
Coach, I got one more quote for you, then I'll get you out of here, is when you took over as head coach for the Rockets, one of the when you won that game, you said, we're not going to hide behind players being young. A lot of people nowadays hide about being young. I want you just to say briefly, it wasn't about the age of a player, because as we hear you talk about what that means to not kind of hide behind a player being young.
You know, in grassroots basketball, people like to play people up. I learned in tennis, the best days parents have in tennis is when their kids play up. And the worst day a kid has in tennis, when the kid who's playing up has to play the kid that's a year behind him. Because he feels if he loses that match, I'm no good. But if the kid playing up, he got nothing to lose. Because if he didn't win, he was supposed to lose anyway. But if he won, he's getting better. Now they can. So I always make kids in Christian tell you, play against your age group. I do not believe in playing up because you're hiding. You want to feel good all the time. Because you know what you say when you lose? We playing up.
Yeah, excuse.
And so like when we, with the Rockets when we were young, it's one thing I used to jump on Jalen about. And I told Jalen, being a pro is being a pro. Pros work at it. I had to get on him one time because in the scouting report, we targeted Carmelo Anthony as the guy we wanted to attack. And he said, yeah, but we target. I said, you don't do that. Don't tell your secrets. And don't embarrass anybody else. And, you know, Jalen, I think, has got a chance to really be really, really good. Whenever you change situations, people have to relearn. And Jalen's in his third year. He won't be really good till his fourth year. And then he's going to take off. Look at the guys who win in this league. You ask in a high school, like John Wall used to get so mad at me. How am I going to win with John Wall, a freshman coming to play in the NBA? How am I going to win games? He's 17, and he playing against
man.
somebody who got 3 kids going home, going to work to prepare. He getting ready to go to the club, and he getting ready to get prepared for the game. How we gonna win with him playing the ball?
Well, Coach, we got, we can literally go on all day. Look, Coach, we got to bring you back for part 2. We got to bring you back for part 3. But this has been so great. We're so blessed to have you here.
No, let me tell you all something. What you all are doing with helping the education of grassroots basketball really critical. Because what happens is grassroots basketball get a bad name. We do have our blemishes, but there are a lot of people doing a lot of good work, like Christian. And one thing about this Houston community and grassroots, we fight each other, really fight each other, lie on each other, do all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, it always seems that we have each other's back once the success is done. And if we can find a way to have each other's back success and everybody successful, we'll keep going. But we're going to find that player. Darren Fox has been close. Not the face of the NBA, but that face of the NBA's got to be like 6'7", can do things, dunk over people, do the things that people that we have. I'm working on it.
Okay.
I'm working on it. We're working on it.
All right.
And then guess where he's got to play?
All right, cool.
He got to play with the Rockets.
All right.
This is our segment, Rooted to the Ground, presented by Kicks Out of Life, telling stories through kicks. And we want to talk about what's on our feet. Now, I'm going to talk about what I got. I'm in 3rd place just because Evarist is outshining me. But more important, we have one of the first athletes ever signed to Nike and John Lucas. But in the summer of 96, the Jordan 11 came out. I think it's the best silhouette of all time, but they made a summer edition, the Jordan 11 IEs. This is a little twist on it, different colorway. That's what I'm rocking today. Evarist, go ahead, man. It speaks for itself.
Well, in honor of Coach Lucas being here today, I want to highlight Houston. So we got the Air Jordan, which is Coach Lucas has talked about Air Jordan. Also, this is the Travis Scott Air Jordan, Air Jordan 1. So this is ode actually to Coach Lucas today with Jordan and Travis Scott with the Jordan 1 low Cactus Jack edition. Coach, we know you got.
I'm rocking these Adney. These because my feet can't handle nothing.
But we know in your house you got probably more Nike shoes than store people have actually seen.
A guy asked me for some shoes, and I had my original Nike Airs. I had, so Michael, right? Michael's from my home area. So John and Jay were ball boys. And Michael would give them a pair of their shoes. So we would save Michael's shoes.
Ooh.
They all dry rotted.
Ah.
Because we put them, we kept them and they all dry rotted. So we lost all of it. We had all of Michael.
So you tell me you had some original,
every pair, the black and white, the red and black, the ones, Michael didn't like the red and black ones. Mm-hmm. You know, the ones that I really liked, when he was really, he didn't have those, because he didn't like them, because he didn't have any white on them. Mm. And if you ever watch David Letterman, he's got a show when Michael was on it.
Yeah,
and Michael was talking about that. And David Letterman said, well, the NBA ain't got no white in it either. That was really good. That's right. But he did not like those shoes. But Michael, the Air Jordans were really good. And you know where that came from? The 76 Olympics. He's playing in the UCLA Poly Pavilion. And they were playing Russia or somebody. And he just had one heck of a series. And David, who represented him, came up with the term Air Jordan.
Wow, that's a great.
So Michael gets maybe a quarter for every time the little Jordan logo man is out there.
Jump
in.
But
But it's two Nikes. Nike also used to have a group called the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. And they had a lot of players there. Then they had the coaches program. It's amazing how shoes. People talk about Adidas and Under Armour. Nike has 98% of the shoe market in apparel. Adidas has 1%. Under Armour has a half of the percent.
Damn.
And who's about to get another half? It's Lululemon.
Mm.
So just think about it. Nike has 99% of the market share for apparel and shoes in all the sports.
Well, Coach, you know, we can stay on the Nike topic. We wanted to
But
make sure.
that's the only thing I'm gonna talk about.
Yeah.
In this kick segment, I'm only gonna talk about Nike.
But hey, we want to tell all our fans out there, thanks for stopping by, checking out Grassroots with our special guest, Coach John Lucas. As you heard, you can find him everywhere on social media at John Lucas Enterprises.
Yeah.
JL3, make sure you follow the AAU organization too as well. For Christian Begg, I'm Evarist Akajobi for Grassroots. Want to make sure that you check out Apollo Media Network at Apollo HRU. Till next time, the grass is always greener. Peace.